So to figure out who killed Muhammad, we just need to do a little profiling. The main difficulty we face here is that lots of people wanted to kill Muhammad. The pagans wanted to kill him for conquering their cities, smashing their idols, slaughtering their men, raping their women, and enslaving their children. Jews wanted to kill him for seizing their land, destroying their communities, slaughtering their men, raping their women, and enslaving their children. Christians wanted to kill him for threatening to conquer them. Men wanted to kill him. Women wanted to kill him. Old people wanted to kill him. Young people wanted to kill him. Muhammad made a lot of enemies. Fortunately, we can narrow down our list of suspects by ruling out people who would have killed Muhammad in some way other than poisoning. Certain killers like to strangle their victims. They're not going to use poison. Some people prefer knives. Some people set fires. Some people push their victims off cliffs. Colonel Mustard wouldn't poison anyone. He'd use a lead pipe in the ballroom. Interestingly, the Quran tells us how Allah would have killed Muhammad. We find Allah's MO, his preferred method of executing false prophets, in Surah 69, verses 44 to 46. According to the Quran, if Muhammad were to invent a false revelation, if he were to fabricate verses of the Quran, Allah would kill him by severing his aorta. The aorta is the artery that comes out of the left ventricle of your heart. It's also called the life artery. Let's look at 4 translations of Surah 69, verses 44 to 46, so we can get a clear idea of what the passage is saying. The
Hilleli Khan translation reads, "And if he, Muhammad, had forged a false saying concerning us is Allah because he's plural sometimes, we surely would have seized him by his right hand, or with power and might, and then we certainly would have cut off his life artery." And in parentheses, the translators add, aorta. The Pickthall translation declares, "And if he had invented false sayings concerning us, we assuredly had taken him by the right hand and then severed his life artery." The Sahih International translation reads, "And if he, i.e. Muhammad, had made up about us some false sayings, we would have seized him by the right hand. Then we would have cut from him the aorta." M.H. Shakir renders these verses, "And if he had fabricated against us some of the sayings, we would certainly have seized him by the right hand. Then we would certainly have cut off his aorta." And just so we're clear on the meaning and no one accuses me of misrepresenting the passage, let me read one of the most popular Muslim commentaries on these verses. This is Tafsir Jalalain. "And had he, namely the Prophet, fabricated any lies against us by communicating from us that which we have not said, we would have assuredly seized him. We would have exacted vengeance against him as punishment by the right hand, by our strength and power. Then we would have assuredly severed his life artery, the aorta of the heart, a vein that connects with it, and which, if severed, results in that person's death." So, if Muhammad had been a false prophet, a liar, a deceiver, a fraud, a phony, a cheat, a con artist, we know how Allah would have killed him. Allah would have severed his aorta. As long as no one severs Muhammad's aorta, then, we can rule out Allah as a suspect.
Putting all of this together, we have at least 10 reasons to reject Islam just by examining how Muhammad died. If we look at how Muhammad lived, of course, we have another trillion or so reasons to conclude that he's the most obvious false prophet in history. But how do Muslims respond to the fact that their prophet died exactly how Allah said he would die if he was fabricating revelations? Well, most Muslims never have to respond because they don't know about any of this. They don't know what Allah said in Surah 69. They don't know what's in Bukhari. They don't know what's in Sahih Muslim. They don't know what's in Sunan Abu Dawud. They don't know what's in Tabari. They don't know what's in Ibn Sa'd. Their leaders hide this from them. You can line up 1,000 Muslims and ask them about their prophet being poisoned and complaining about his aorta being severed. And if even one Muslim in 1,000 knows about this, it's because he heard it from me. Under no circumstances did he hear this from his sheikhs and imams. Imagine a religion where the followers of the religion only learn the truth about the prophet of the religion from people who don't follow the religion because the scholars of the religion keep the followers of the religion in a state of ignorance. What's the point of Muhammad dying in total agony in exactly the way Allah said he would die if he fabricated revelations? See the difference? So, there's just no way around this problem. The Quran said that Allah would sever Muhammad's aorta if he fabricated revelations, and Muhammad died saying that he could feel his aorta being severed. In the Muslim sources, we even find Muhammad admitting that he fabricated revelations. After the infamous satanic verses incident, where Muhammad told his followers that they could pray to 3 pagan goddesses, Muhammad confessed in the History of At-Tabari, Volume 6, page 111, "I have fabricated things against God and have imputed to him words which he has not spoken." How could Muhammad make it any more obvious that he was a false prophet? Think about how simple this is. Allah says in the Quran, and if he had fabricated against us some of the sayings, we would certainly have seized him by the right hand. Then we would certainly have cut off his aorta. Muhammad says in the History of At-Tabari, "I have fabricated things against God and have imputed to him words which he has not spoken." Then he says in Sunan Abu Dawud, "This is the time when it has cut off my aorta." How could this be any simpler? What I find most interesting in all of this is that when I show Muslims what their sources say, they don't get mad at Muhammad for deceiving them. They don't get mad at their sources for embarrassing them. They don't get mad at their scholars for hiding this information from them. They get mad at me for telling them the truth and showing them what's in their sources. They get mad at me for making a video about what really happened to their prophet. They get mad at me for criticizing the most obvious false prophet in history. But let me be perfectly clear. Nothing I've said about Muhammad in this video or anywhere else comes close to what God said about Muhammad. I'll go a step further. If you take everything that people have ever said or done to insult Muhammad, Salman Rushdie's satanic verses, the Danish cartoons, Charlie Hebdo, Islamicize Me, Muhammad's Boom Boom Room, AP's videos, if you take all of our criticisms and mockery of Muhammad and roll it all up into one big ball, it's nothing compared to what God did to Muhammad, according to the Muslim sources. There's no comparison between some guy drawing a picture of Muhammad and God severing his aorta to humiliate and degrade and expose him. God is the ultimate critic of Muhammad. So, what are you going to do, my Muslim friends? Are you going to run around calling God an Islamophobic bigot because he insulted your fake prophet?